Welcome back to Law and Crime, everybody. I'm Jesse Weber, joined here on set with Emily Galvin-Almanza, Michael Bachner. I got Cheryl Dorsey. Big group, lot to talk about. Let's get started. Okay, Emily, I want to ask you, she's such a big role in this whole case. What do you think about her testimony and the role that she played in this trial? Because she was at the center of all of it.
Completely at the center. And it's a really interesting role for her to play because it's not a simple self-defense matter. It's not a fight between Jimmy and Sean that starts with Jimmy and Sean. It's a fight that starts ostensibly with Sean feeling that all this history from ages 12 to 19, the molestation, the abuse, all of it's coming to a head in this moment. So Miranda's testimony is giving us the basis of the fight that becomes the inciting incident, which will be the foundation of Sean's self-defense claim.
Right.
I think, to me, the most important evidence in this case is actually much more scientific, much more based on the angle of the gunshot wounds into Jimmy's body. But I think for the jury, the story is the most important thing. And the story here is rooted in Miranda.
No, I 100% agree with you. And Michael, I guess the question is, are you surprised that he pled guilty to voluntary manslaughter when he was able to convince a jury it wasn't first-degree murder, they're hung as the second degree? In a way, you have a guy who was trying to protect his girlfriend from a victim that is so unsympathetic in this case. Are you surprised by the result that we are in right now, that we're waiting for him to be sentenced?
I'm not totally surprised. As I mentioned with us earlier, defendants at times plead guilty for two reasons. One is because the deal is too good to refuse, even if they actually may not have been guilty of the offense conduct. Unfortunately, it does happen. It's a part of the problem with our system. If you're looking at life or you're looking at 20 years and you're offered 3 to 6, some of these guys will take the 3 to 6. The other option is that he was guilty of the offense to which he decided to plead guilty, but was not guilty of the offense for which he was charged. And you're looking at this girlfriend's testimony, it's not helpful for him. She's saying that there was no overt actions by the deceased, that she didn't feel threatened by him, which is she didn't see a weapon. He wasn't asked. I would have wanted to know, was he known to carry a weapon or anything of that nature, but she's not a helpful witness, so I can understand why he decided to take this plea.
Well, before we get to her on cross-examination, Cheryl, I want to get your perspective on this. You know, self-defense, you have ex-military here. We played earlier his 911 phone call. What's your perspective on him using deadly force in this matter?
Well, he perceived a threat, and there was some talk before, I think we discussed, where there was some gunplay. Shelton was known to have access to a weapon, and whether or not he had it on that particular night may not be known, but he had access. And I think there was a lot of back and forth, not only on this evening, but on prior occasions with regards to just the relationship of all the participants. And I'm not certain, you tell me, but if the defendant is in custody, getting 3 to 6 years potentially, he might just be walking out the door when this thing is said and done after sentencing, right?
Well, not so fast. I mean, we'll have to see. I don't think that would be the case. You guys would know better than I would about whether or not he'll have a date later on when he has to appear and actually turn himself over. But based upon what I would see, I would think that he would go straight to prison. But we'll talk about that in a second. I want to focus more on Miranda Goddard, though, under cross-examination, because really this was the moment for the defense to try to strike at her credibility. And it's interesting because she's a sensitive but important witness. Let's hear how they did. All right, Emily, what do you think about that? It's a tough job to cross-examine this witness because she's theoretically a victim of sexual abuse her entire life. She's at the center of it. We all heard her hysterically crying over that audio. Difficult job for the defense. How'd they do?
It's a difficult job, and I would have liked to see a more human connection. And I think that's really, really hard to do. It's a very strange space. It's a very formalized space. And it's a space in which the temptation when it comes to especially sensitive subject matter like sexual abuse is to be extremely clinical. I think it works better, though, to acknowledge the humanity of the situation and, for the jury's sake, to acknowledge the difficulty of having this conversation. I think the jury wants to see the attorney as another human player in the court, and when the attorney holds themselves back as a mere professional entity, I think it can be a difficult challenge to overcome.
You know, Michael, Cheryl raised a good point earlier about if, we're talking about a sentencing, 3 to 6 years, what is the actual prison time he could get here? Because by all accounts, he's still in custody, and he's been in custody for quite some time. And I guess the question is, what is he really looking at?
Every jurisdiction gives credits in different fashions. New York gives it one way, New Jersey another way, the feds another way. So on 3 to 6, if he gets 3, and assuming for a moment he's getting credit for his time in, which I'm assuming he is going to be getting, he's been in for about a year and change. So if he gets 3, he's going to do 3 minus that, then minus whatever good time credits he might get. So theoretically, he could be out, as Cheryl said, it could be out in a year or less, or 2 years or something of that nature. And if he gets 6 years, it's certainly better than, if he's out in 4, it's a lot better than being out in 15.
It's interesting you said it's almost as a way he's accepting guilt of what he did, even though he still might feel justified in what ultimately happened. And Cheryl, you know, it's a sad story from a lot of different perspectives about why he ultimately did this. One of the things that Miranda Goddard said when she was on the stand is she had reported to authorities earlier on, back I believe in 2009, that she was being abused, but authorities didn't do anything, most likely because they couldn't substantiate her account. It seems like a travesty. Seems like if that was the case, maybe we wouldn't be where we are here today. Can you help explain that?
Well, is it that they couldn't substantiate her account, or is that they didn't want to substantiate, didn't find her credible somehow? She's a child. She's being victimized. And to hear them, you know, say somehow now, once she gets 19, that the relationship continues, but it's okay because, you know, it almost sounds like it's consensual. Well, we did it for money. It was an arrangement. But listen, she's got history with this guy. And in my mind, she's still in a very vulnerable headspace. She probably feels like, you know what, if you're going to abuse me, I might as well get something out of it. So sure, let me use your car. Give me some money. She's a victim all along the way, and she should be treated with sympathy, empathy, compassion. It bothers me.
Well, I gotta tell you, there was one thing her taking the stand. It was another when Sean Foley took the stand. We're gonna take a break. When we come back, that's what we're gonna play for you. Stay tuned.